You seem to have been, most people I think assume you're from the Midlands, Ron, because you've been here all this time, but in fact you were born in Liverpool, weren't you?
Yeah, born in Liverpool. My mother was from Liverpool, my dad was a Brummie. I only stayed at Liverpool. I was born there, but we moved back after a couple of days or so back to Birmingham. I mean, my throwaway line is that somebody nicked me pram and we had to move, but no, we were up there for like a holiday break or something like that.
And you actually started at Wolves, didn't you?
Yeah, first club I went to when I left school. I was playing at a good level, at schoolboy level, at Birmingham District, County, so forth, and Wolves then were very prominent in their youth policy. They had a legendary scout named George Noakes. He'd watched me play for the schoolboys, and that came to my house, and there were several of them came round, but he came round and persuaded me to go to Wolves. And I went on what was then, they didn't have apprentices then, they had ground staff boys. So I was there for about 12 months, and I mean it was great. They had all the big floodlit friendlies that Wolves were famous for at the time. And then what happened, a guy who lived close to me named Herbie Smith played for the Villa, and he said, why don't you come to the Villa? And he persuaded me to come away from there and go to the Villa. And in the meantime, when I left, I took an engineering apprenticeship at the BSA, started playing for the BSA tools, as it was, and then I got into their representative sides. I played for their youth team. This is the Birmingham Works League, which at the time I think was the biggest in the world. They had 24 divisions. And then I got into the senior side when I'm pretty sure I'm still the youngest player ever to play in their senior team. I was about 16 when I got picked for the Birmingham Works League. But I knew all along I was going to go to Villa.
In old-fashioned parlance, you were a wing half, weren't you? Were you a robust wing half when you were a young player?
Well, funnily enough, I was more of an inside forward, but which is only slightly different. But I always felt I was going to be better in midfield, as you say, wing half. But early on, because I scored a few goals, they used to play me up front a bit. But later on, when I went to the Villa, I moved back into what's now a midfield position. But as you say, as a wing half, yeah.
You had 3 seasons there. You didn't make it into the first team. Did you enjoy those days?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The trouble was, because I was working, you know, you talk about regrets, and I've got very few regrets in my career. I think with hindsight now, I wouldn't have gone into part-time. I'd have gone full-time then, because I think I'd have broke through very quickly. I mean, I was playing in the reserve team, and there were kids of about 24 that had never played in the first team, and I was about 17, you know, playing with these lads. But I felt then, when I look back, I think I played, if you like, with an amateur's attitude. I did enjoy playing, and perhaps at that stage I wasn't professional enough. Whereas maybe if I'd gone full time, I'd got that professionalism.
I'm sure you didn't lack for confidence, though, did you?
No, but people say to me now, and I've discussed this with certain managers that say you cannot enjoy playing. I said, well, I did. I used to look forward to match days. Even later on when I was playing in the league and all that, I always loved match days.
So you had 11 seasons, I was going to say at Oxford United, but they were still called Headington United then, weren't they?
I must admit, when I signed for them, I thought I'd signed for a London club. And I went there. And what had happened, they got a manager, Arthur Turner, who was Birmingham's manager, and is still probably the most successful Birmingham manager there's been. And he got a group of young players from the Midlands, all from reserve football. He took about 4 from Wolves, a couple from Birmingham, myself, and then he persuaded me to bring my brother, who was about 15 at the time, to come with us as well. And what he did, he never coached us, but he made sure he signed people with character. And we had a great time there, but it was Headington. I mean, I'd never been to a football ground that wasn't surrounded by terraced houses and this. So I go down, the first day we arrived, we're going down, there's houses with gardens and flowers and trees. And I thought, there can't be a football ground here. But there was, and they changed the name, changed it to Oxford the next year. And within the following year, we were in the league. And what they'd done, they'd prepared well. We'd gone full-time straight away. We were all full-time players. And by the time we went into the Football League, we were, there was very little change. We were prepared for it.
You enjoyed those days there?
Brilliant. There was a group of lads, and even now we still get together from time to time. And by and large, I would say 7 or 8 of the boys played together for, I played 11 years, so a lot of them stayed together for 7 or 8 years, and we had various promotions together, and it was a good team ethic. It was great, and even now we still have quite a few laughs about what went on.
I'm going to say, because some of those friendships and some of the people you played with, they've been enduring friendships still today, aren't they, with you?
Yeah, I play golf occasionally. My brother, ironically enough, and I didn't realise this till last year, I've got the record number of appearances for Oxford, yeah. But my brother's got the record number of goals.
Right.
And last year there was a kid, I think his name was Constable, was within 1 goal, and 1 or 2 of the boys were laughing and saying, "Your record's going to Graham." And they sold him. That's it.
Yeah, if I can believe what I read, 384 games you played for them. So
well, that was league games.
Yeah.
I think the official total is something like 500 and something. Yeah.
Does that seem now a world away from what you then later became used to?
Does it seem a world away? I don't think it does. I don't think it did. It's quite funny because at the time, all right, the maximum wage had been lifted, but it was nothing. I've talked with Nobby Stiles, who coached for me at West Brom, and we compared notes. And I think the year he won the World Cup and the European Cup, I think I was on about £2 a week more than him basic, although he was obviously his bonuses were a little bit different. Yeah.
And how soon was it before you thought, I want to go into management?
Well, the strange thing was, once again, I've been playing there about 5 or 6 years, and a guy said, "Have you ever thought what you're going to do when you finish?" I'd done a lot of coaching courses. I think I got my coaching badges when I was about early 20s, 21, 22, something like that. Done a bit of coaching at the local colleges and so forth. But I said, well, I don't know really. And he said, well, and he offered me a job, which I took up. I was still playing football, but I did a job in commerce. I was selling stuff at a big builders merchants. I used to go out on the road after I'd finished training and stuff like that. And he offered me the, but I hadn't, to be fair, I hadn't really thought about going into football management. And then one season I came back, and we were still doing well, and I got offered about 4 jobs in a month. I got offered the Reading job, player manager, Crewe. John Bond wanted me to go to Bournemouth with him. And then out the blue, a guy named John Nash, who was a very wealthy guy from Kettering, asked me to take over the Kettering job. And I said, well, no, I don't really fancy that. He said, come and meet me. And when I met him, and when he started outlining his ideas and his plans, and a little bit similar to what we'd done at Oxford 10 years earlier, I came away and I rang my dad and I said, you know what, I'm quite impressed with him. He said, well, if you don't have a go, you'll never know, And that really did it. So I went player manager. I played at West Ham 1 week. The following week I'm playing at Bletchley, which is now obviously Milton Keynes. And it was a lot harder at Bletchley than it was at West Ham, yeah.
Well, you going back to those days, I know you were captain at Oxford, and as you say, you'd done your badges and all the rest of it. What was the sort of confident, outgoing Ron Atkinson that everybody sees? Was that burgeoning then, do you think?
Oh, I'd always have my say. The manager, Arthur Turner, made me captain when I was about, I think I was 20.
Yeah.
And he said one thing that always stuck with me. He said, as a captain, even if you're not playing well, you're still entitled to have a go at anybody else in the team. And I took that on board all the while, and I've gone, yeah, but he would have a pop at me at half time. He had 4 players he had lined up, myself, big centre forward Bud Houghton, and the left back, Pat Quartermain, because he knew he'd get a reaction. You know, if he'd ever got me at half time, and I'd flare up and whatever, but it wouldn't be, I wouldn't sulk, I wouldn't be sulking, I'd go and say, I'll show him. Now, funnily enough, I can remember years later being at Man U and having a little incident, half time, playing Watford, and we're getting murdered. At Old Trafford, getting murdered. And with 2 midfield players were Ray Wilkins and Brian Robson. And we're getting murdered, and we're drawing no score, and we should be 10 down. Anyway, coming at half time, and I go to Ray Wilkins, Ray, come on, quicken, let's have a few more forward passes. And then I look at Rob, I say, when are you going to start playing? What are you talking about? I said, I'm talking to you. I said, there's 2 kids there in midfield, Kenny Jackett, there's Taylor. He used to clean my boots and he weren't much cop at that. I said, and he's murdering you. He's absolutely murdering you. When are you going to start playing? And Robbo now steams. Well, I'm not having, I said, I don't care what you're having. I said, because if you don't get off, you don't get out and start doing it, I'll have somebody else on. He's like captain of England, Captain Marvel. We're actually in the cup final as well 2 weeks later. He goes out and we win 4. He gets 2, doesn't he? He comes steaming in through the dressing room, opens, he's not interested in plaudits, he wants me. As he walks in through the dressing room, they're smiling. I've gone, that's the Robbo we all love and adore, and he's gone, you.
So you did that deliberately to them?
Oh,
There
yeah,
were two huge name
but you
players.
know your player. I mean, I knew that if I'd have said that to Ray, Ray would have gone, oh, I'm not having that. And he might have gone under. But certain other players, you challenge. And I knew if you challenge Robbo, challenge his ability. And once again, it's knowing your players. You can't do it with every player. But certain players you can go, get yourself sorted, son, or whatever. And you know you'll get a response. Ali Robertson at West Brom, same thing.
Did you learn these skills of what is effectively man management when you were a captain? Did you see then, well, if I do this and do that, this is how it will go, this is what will happen?
I don't honestly know. I mean, my basic premise as a manager, whenever I went into any club, I used to say, nobody can play badly for me, providing you're always attempting to do the job you should do. You might not always be great, but you won't play badly. If you're a striker and you're missing goals, but so long as you keep going in the box looking for chances, I'll stay with you to a certain extent. Obviously, if you keep missing, you come out. But if a striker started what I call ducking out and not going into the box, then you nail him. Midfield players, if you're asking people to close down and close down and close down, even if it's not coming off, keep doing it. You know, and that was one premise. The other one, the 2 golden rules really were, I treat players, I will treat you as I would want to be treated as a player. Don't mean to say you're going to get everything your own way, but, and if I ever made a promise to a player, I'd never break it.
Your next stop was Cambridge, and I mentioned this particularly because when you went to West Brom, there was a player you'd had at Cambridge that you took there. Now, Brendan Batson had been at Arsenal, clearly a player of some talent, but it was a bit of a feisty relationship at time, wasn't it, between you and him?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Brendan, he'd got a chip on his shoulder. There's no question about that, and he'd also thought he was Billy Big Time, to a certain extent. I had a right bust up with him over, can't think what it was, and the outcome was, look, I said, if you don't sort yourself out, within 3 months he was club captain. Sorted himself out, got himself into gear sort of thing, and never looked back.
I mean, he did so well for you, and then of course you took him to West Brom, didn't you?
Exactly. I mean, I got to West Brom, and I had 1 or 2 very good young players at Cambridge, Fallon, Spriggs, Biley, young 17, 18-year-olds that everybody thought I'd go for. So I got to West Brom, and I'm looking at the players we've got, and I got Paddy Mulligan at right back, who was steady Eddie, who was decent. And I kept looking at him and thinking, well, Brendan Batson can do everything you can do, and he's miles quicker. So I think Brendan was the most surprised person in the world when I went back in and bought him.
I was about to say to you, I'm trying to imagine his reaction.
Yeah, well, it was all done very quickly. I knew there was a powerhouse at the club, the vice chairman at Cambridge, He was a good pal of mine, but I knew on every Thursday he went and played golf, and he stayed out all night with his mates. So I went in that particular day. I said to the chairman, I know the chairman who was an accountant would bite at any sort of money, and I said, I want to buy Batson off you. Now they all thought I'd come in for one of the kids. I'll buy Batson. I'll give you 25 grand for him. And he's going, I said, I want it done today, because you had to get them signed on a Thursday. Want it done today, because if not, deal's off. Well, we need a bit more for that. I said, look, I can't be hanging about. 28 grand done. He said, okay. So I then ring Brendan, who had no idea. Brendan was having some sort of a drinks party or something at his house. He said, well, I said, get yourself out of there, get in your car. I want you in Birmingham this evening for a medical. There's a specific reason for this, for a medical, and we get the deal done. So he comes over, we do the deal that night. Next morning I get the vice chairman, Reg Smart, onto me, giving me absolute pelters. You have cheated, and he was a good mate of mine like Reg. You've cheated us. You know that should be 10 times as much as that. I said, well, the deal had to be done, Reg. I said, how was your golf yesterday anyway? Yeah.
Lesson learned, eh? He joined Laurie Cunningham and Cyril Regis at West Brom. It became known as the 3 degrees. I mean, they've done so well collectively and individually that there's a statue going to be put up in the town to them. At that stage, black players were so rare in the game. I mean, people kind of blinked, didn't they?
Well, they did, but I don't know really. It didn't seem to make any difference to us. Like they were just three very good players and three very good lads. It didn't. People said, well, you were taking a chance then. I was taking a chance on players that good. No problem. And whether they did get the abuse that I hear of now, it certainly didn't seem like that at the time. They were certainly well accepted. Certainly in our camp they were, and in most camps. I remember us playing at Leeds, and Leeds fans, as you well know, were very volatile.
At the moment.
Yeah, and they were giving them stick. But they give everybody stick. The centre half got stick, he got... And Cyril, and they performed, Cyril scored 2 at Ellen Road. And I tell you what I do remember, their crowd giving them a standing ovation when they came off. Now that never gets reported, you know. You hear about the other side of it, but they won a lot of people over with their ability, just the way they performed and the way they conducted themselves.
Did they at that stage, I say we're going back quite a few years, did they at that stage have to prove themselves more?
They may have done. It wasn't an issue with us, you know, and they may have done. I mean, they didn't have to prove themselves to me. You know, I knew what they could do. I mean, there's a lot more talk about it now than certainly there was then. They just got on with the jobs and did it properly. Yeah, I think from time to time. They maybe got certain abuse, but I think there's quite a few players of different sort of got abused for different things, you know, from fans, particularly visiting fans or away fans. Yeah.
I mean, Cyril certainly was a big, powerful lad. He could look after himself, couldn't he?
Yeah, they all.
And Brendan was a feisty guy.
Yeah, I don't think. And the other thing they did very often, they treated things with humour. I mean, you've heard the banana thing where they threw it on. Well, a lot of that was in good nature, you know. I remember, I think it was Brendan picked one up and peeled it and started eating it, and the crowd laughed their heads off. I think it was at West Ham, I think, and the crowd laughed their heads off. You know, they won them over by just being, okay, sir. Shut up.
Did you, at that stage, was there any sort of reaction within football to these players being with you? I mean, they have told me, I know, and I mean, certainly Brendan and Cyril, because I interviewed Cyril only the other week, and he said they were perfectly accepted within the club and the West Brom supporters, and when they were away, if something happened, they did. He said that there were visiting centre or opposing centre halves who gave him more stick than they got from the crowd.
Maybe, but I mean, opposing centre halves as well. I mean, you hear about it in cricket. Sledging, I suppose, is the in phrase. I mean, they'd have a go at everybody. Players on the field, and it wouldn't necessarily be about what race they were, whatever. I mean, I can imagine people playing against Wiley and Robertson, centre forwards, and calling them all sorts of names, and Wiley and Robertson calling them that name as well. Yeah.
You must look back. I mean, when you went to West Brom, they obviously saw a winner in you, and they got a winner. Did you, when the offer came, think, hey, wow, what a big chance this is for me. This is what I've been waiting for.
It came out the blue a little bit because we were doing well. We'd gone from fourth. We'd gone from the bottom of the fourth to top of the third in 2 seasons. So we were, and I'd got a good side together, and I was getting some good publicity.
This is at Cambridge, isn't it? Yeah.
And ironically enough, I think just before I went to West Brom, I don't know how long before it was, but I think Graham Taylor had been offered the job. But I'd been offered the Watford job. And I sort of half thought about it. I thought, well, Watford at the time was no improvement on Cambridge. In fact, they were below us in the league. And then I think within the 2 or 3 months, I'm at West Brom and he's at Watford.
How did the offer come about then?
Your name was in the paper. They were looking, and then one of the directors rang me up, or rang the club up for permission to talk to me, because the secretary said, West Brom want to talk to you. I said, well, I'll talk. And I met Bert Millichip and Tom Silk, the vice chairman. I had a meeting with them, and that more or less clarified that the job was mine. And I said, and they wanted to keep it quiet for about 10 days. And then we did what was turned to be an official interview at the Randolph. Once again, we've gone back to play at Oxford that night. And we're at the Randolph Hotel, and they came to see me then. But the job had all been done. And then I went to Birmingham next day, we played Oxford, we beat Oxford that night. And I remember with some guys, a few of my mates and that, we had a bit of a night out afterwards. And all of a sudden, next morning, I'm supposed to be going to Birmingham for my official interview and press thing and whatever. And I thought, well, I ain't got a suit. And I had to go out and buy a suit that morning from a guy I knew in Oxford. We get to Birmingham, and it was all a sham. There was no interview. I just went through, and it was quite funny because Sid Lucas, good old Brummy, one of the directors, he's gone, Ron, come and see what I've got for you. So he takes me around the back, and there's a nice blue Jag there. He said, fancy that, don't you? I said, yeah, it's all right, isn't it? A 3.4, whatever the type of Jag it was, I don't know. He said, what are you driving at the moment? I said, well, I got one of them, but it's a 4.2. He went, I thought coming from Cambridge, you'd be driving a Mini. Yeah.
Well, that was you, wasn't it? I mean, that was the immediate perception.
Yeah.
With all these things with you, there was always that bit. Was it brashness? Was it just you being you, or was he taking the heat out of the situation with some humour?
No, I don't know. It was. It's like football clubs. Wherever I went, I never wanted to make a football club a prisoner of war camp. I wanted it to be a place where people bubbled, where people couldn't wait to get back in, players, and I think players that played for me will by and large say they enjoyed coming. All right, along the way you fall out with people, that's par for the course. But I never wanted people thinking, oh, I'm going to go in there today, have I? People, on days off, people would want to come in. And that's the atmosphere you try to generate.
You've got a pretty good side together that did very well there, didn't you?
Yeah, I still believe that apart from the big freeze in '78, I think we'd have won the league. I do honestly. I think that spell we had around about December, I think we could have beaten any team in Europe. We beat Valencia in the second leg, a very good Valencia side. We'd gone to We went to Old Trafford and had the famous 5-3 game. We won at Arsenal the 2 days before that. They'd just beaten Spurs 5, and we get them back to Highbury and we beat them. Beat Man U. We beat Bristol City on New Year's Day, which was a bit legendary. It was played on the frost, and I'd been to Germany to get these AstroTurf boots, which we were going about like Torval and Dean. Bristol City were going about like Pearl and Dean. You know, it was yeah. In fact, it was quite funny. Before the game, they wanted the game off, and there's 35,000 in the Hawthorns half an hour before the kickoff. Tony Brown comes flying past me in the warm-up. He goes, and I'm with the referee, Alan Dix, their manager, and they're desperate to get the game off. And I say, Tony Brown says, "Gaffer, we got to play this." And I turn around to the ref. I said, "I'm not going to say anything. He's played 700 games and he wants to play, so that's good enough for me." And they put it on, and we were brilliant. We were absolute brilliant. But the little thing, there was a little aside before the game. Joe Roy was a big mate of mine, and he'd just made his debut on the Saturday against Liverpool, and I think he got a hat-trick for Bristol. So before the game, you used to have to put the teams in quarter of an hour, and I'm outside the referee's room, and they've had to go and warm up now, Bristol, and they've got these leather studs, and they're coming along the passageway, which is concrete, and I could hear these studs clattering as they're going past the wall. And Big Joe walks past me, he says, "Ron, you've played the game. That is stupid out there playing that game under those conditions." I said, "Joe, if you don't want to get hurt, stand still." And to this day I remind him, I say, "Joe, remember, you didn't move till the 75th minute, till Alan Dix said, 'Come off.'" That's the first time you ran all match. Yeah.
You've got good players around you. You can coach them, you can improve them. But isn't a big slice, I mean, I know clubs call them managers a lot now, call them head coaches and things. But isn't the man management absolutely as crucial as the coaching?
That's that. By and large, when you're in the top division, yeah, you can improve team patterns. You can improve players, that's for sure. But by and large, the biggest situation in management for me is in the name, management. Getting the utmost out of what you've got. All right, your selection's got to be right. It's like the national team. You can't coach the England players. You can organise them, but what you've got to do is get the maximum out of those, because they're top players. You know, and all right, if you bring somebody in, yeah, you can work on little techniques and little things, but by and large, it's getting the maximum out of what you've got. I mean, Cloughie never coached anybody, but he made sure everybody that played did, you know, got at it and did what he. If you got it there, you pass to him. Right, not there, there. Yeah, I mean, when I was at Cambridge, you know, what I used to do on a day off, I used to go to Norwich and watch Bondi coach. I mean, I was quite pally with Bondi then. I used to watch him coach. He was a great coach. I'm not too sure about if he had a problem. It might have been with his management. You know, he was a bit erratic in his man management. But as a coach, brilliant. So I'd go and watch him, and I'd take on board some of his ideas, a lot of his ideas. Or whenever there was anybody like at our ground at Cambridge, Billy Nicholson was always there watching. And as soon as the game was over, myself and little John Dockett, my coach, we tried to buttonhole him in a corner and talk to him. Every Thursday afternoon at Cambridge, in fact, I think they twigged us in the end, the board of directors, because of the phone bill. We used to ring Bill Shankly every Thursday afternoon, and I used to say to John Dockett, he'd get on the party line and listen, and we'd have an hour talking to Shanks, and you'd come off, you go, you know, it was brilliant. Yeah. So I've never even when I was at the Villa, you know, I think people sometimes are frightened of knowledge. You know, when I was at the Villa, and I was by and large one of the top managers according to Doug, I was one of the top 3. But I took Dave Sexton on board with us, because Dave Sexton was the best coach I've ever seen. He was brilliant. And I'd go and watch, he used to come and coach the younger players, the 21, not in terms of having a team, but in terms of teaching them, like Dwight York and Fenton and people like that, Froggatt. He used to have 3 sessions a week with them, and I'd go and watch them, just to see, you know, what good ideas came out of it. I wasn't looking for another job, that's for sure. And even when the Man United job came up, I hadn't given any thought at all. And it's well documented. I think Laurie McMahon had been offered it and turned it down. And where was I? I'll tell you where I was. We were on tour. We were in Fort Lauderdale in Florida. End of season, when we just had when we were down there. And we'd been to see Tampa Bay Rowdies play there, and Frank Worthington was playing. And after the game, we're at a bar, and Frank comes up, he said, "I've heard who the next manager of Man U is." I said, "Who's that?" He went, "You." "Oh no, are you serious?" So I'm telling you. So we came home, and nothing was said. And I went working for television. I went out with a pal of mine to the European Cup final, Liverpool and Real Madrid in Paris. When I was out there, I got a phone call from a journalist, John Maddox from The People. "Ron, Martin Edwards would like to talk to you, chairman of Manchester United." I said, "Well, I'm flying back into Manchester." He said, "Can you meet him?" And I went and met him there and then and started talking. I thought, yeah, I think you'd have to take it. Tell you where I was going in. I always felt I was going in from strength, because we were always a better team than Man U in that period. I mean, when I went to Man U, one of the things they said was, you know, it's 15 years since we won the league. I said, hey, it's only 4 years since you're in the second division. You know, and you've only finished twice in the top 3 to my knowledge since you won the European Cup in '68. So from that point of view, we, you know, and at West Brom, I think we finished 3 times in the top European places. So, and we'd give them a few good ideas along the way.
So when you got that job, did you think you've done it, Ron?
No, I mean, first I said to Martin Edwards, who is still the best chairman I've ever worked for. He was brilliant, Martin. I said, I'll tell you what we've got to do. Man United was synonymous with Europe. You know, they were the early trailblazers and what have you. We've got to get back to that. We've got to become a European side. I think they'd only played in Europe 3 times in the previous 15 years. So that was the first aim, to set our stall out to be qualified for Europe, which we did every year. And then subsequently start to put a side that could maybe have a thrash at the title.
You went back to West Brom, of course, for Brian Robson and Remy Moses. You went to Arsenal for Frank Stapleton. They were 3 absolutely key signings, weren't they?
Well, they were. I mean, the first day I get to Old Trafford, I'm just driving in, and Joe Jordan, who'd been their Player of the Year, is walking out. I said, "Hey, big man, looking forward to working with you." He said, "I've got to tell you, Ron, I'm off to Milan." I went, "Oh, serious?" So he's gone. I go down to a little office they got sorted for me. Mickey Thomas comes in to see me, little Mickey, and the first thing that struck me was he wouldn't sit still. He's gone. I said, "Mickey," and I love Mickey. I have some great times with him. I said, "Mickey, sit still. Come on, what's up?" "Boss, I want to move." I've gone, "I've been here 7 minutes. You've really given me a chance, didn't you?" I said, "Why do you want to move, Mick?" He said, "Well, I owe a lot of money." So my first thought is, I said, "Why, do you gamble?" He said, No. He said, "I just spend more than I earn." I thought, well,
nice and simple, eh?
Not a good recipe. Anyway, I knew Howard Kendall had sort of chapped him a bit. And I wanted a right back, and they got Gidman there, so I swapped him for Giddy. That was little Remy. Yeah. Remy's contract was up at West Brom, and I'm in a hotel, and I've got Frank Stapleton locked in a room, trying to button him down because I know Liverpool wanted him. And it's now about 1 in the morning, no, about 11 in the morning, 11 at night. Knock on the door. I open the door. There's a little frizzy-haired lad, Remy. "Boss, I've come to sign for you." I've got him in there, and I've got, "Look, there's the key. Go and sit in that room down there, my room." I was at the hotel. So I did it. We were with Frank for about another 3 hours before we got, So I go back to the little man. He's in there. I said, "Little man, I'm tired now. If you want to come, I'll sign you." He said, "Fine." I said, "Do you want to?" "No." He said, "I know you'll look after me," and left. And he signed for us.
Yeah.
But the number one target had been Robson.
Yeah.
You know, and Robbo. When I was at West Brom, when Robbo played for England, after every England game, I used to call him in and go, "Come on, who's tapped you on this one?" And he'd tell me, he'd say, "Well, Arsenal have had a dabble, Liverpool," and he came back in one day, and he was very reluctant. I said, "Come on, who is it?" He said, "Well, Man United have tapped me." I said, "The only way you'll ever go to Man United is if I go. Now get out and train." I had a bit of a pop at him actually. So the day I get the Man United job, the day I'm going there, I get a phone call. Robbo's out with the England team in Switzerland. He rings me. "You know what you said, Gaffer?" I said, "Hang on, you're not supposed to tap me. I'm supposed to tap you." Like, you know, and we chipped away at West Brom and chipped away, and I actually thought we weren't going to get him. I really did. I was almost going to give up on it. And we played Swansea, and Bill Shankly came to the game, and he'd come primarily to see Toshak, who was Swansea's manager. So I've got him in there. He's in my office beforehand having a cup of tea. And I said, "Bill, Brian Robson, what would you pay?" And he said, "Whatever it takes."
Really?
I went,
That was all you needed to hear, wasn't it? Yeah.
And we went to the board meeting, and I said to the directors when we signed him, I said, "It's not a gamble." I said, "Sometimes a big transfer fee is a gamble. This ain't a gamble. You are buying gold." And do you know Sir Matt resigned over that deal? Resigned from the board. Not through any acrimony or anything like that. He held his hand up and said, "I just can't now come to terms with what the amount that's going on players." I mean, bless his heart. And he was brilliant with me, Sir Matt. I just wonder now when he sees Bale for 80 million and all that. Yeah.
How pressured a job was it in the end at Old Trafford? Because you, I said when I started talking about there that because of the Busby legacy and people have followed you and failed and quite recently have failed there. Is it kind of from the top? Is the pressure there? The old players are there and so on?
I never found that at all. I never, honestly. I think it was maybe because I felt I'd come from a position. Hey, if I'd left somebody like, I don't know, somebody that was in the lower reaches, I might have felt it, but I didn't. I remember having a meal with somebody, a journalist doing a job. They said, "I can't believe you. We're sitting here and you're manager of the biggest club or whatever, and you're not nervous." I said, "Why should I be nervous?" I said, "I'll tell you what, we've got a great training ground, we've got great facilities, we've got good players, phenomenal ground. There's a kid who's just taken over, Mickey Bullock had just taken over at Halifax." I said, "He ain't got a training ground. He'll be scratching around for kit for his training sessions. That's pressure. Not pressure, but he's got more problems than I have."
One of the early things, of course, you did as well was you gave Norman Whiteside his debut. He was 16, wasn't he? I mean, what a player he was in tragedy with all the injuries he's got. But, I mean, you obviously looked at him. I mean, he looked like a man, I should think, when he was 11, didn't he? Because at 16, people were going, "He's how old?" But
you know what? I've only ever said 3 players at 15 and 16 are certainties. Him. I also thought Lee Hendry was at the Villa, and another kid who didn't make it. But Norman didn't play a lot of reserve team football. I saw Norman in the reserves, and the 2 in the youth team, and the 2 strikers we had were him and Sparky, Mark Hughes. Now, Mark Hughes was a bit more suspect than Norman. Norman was a certainty. I looked at him, I went, and we were playing Brighton towards the end of the season. I said to, at a staff meeting, I used to have a small staff, and I called them in, I've gone, "I'm going to give the kid a game." And to be fair, they all went, "Not sure he's ready yet." Brian Whitehouse, who was always pushing young players, he's got a bit to do yet. Even Eric Harrison, who was the best signing I ever made, the youth team coach who brought all the class of 92 through and all that. Eric's gone, "I think it's a bit early for him, you know." I said, "Well, I don't care what any of you think, he's playing."
Yeah.
I put him sub. And then he made his debut against Stoke and scored last game of the season. Then Billy Bingham picked him for the World Cup.
So what is it as a manager then that you see in somebody like that made you say, "My mortgage is going on this, he's going to do it, he is that good"?
I don't think there's any you can, you start saying he ticks all the boxes. Sometimes players don't tick the boxes, but they're good players. I mean, I talked to Fergie the other week. I said, Alex, do you, go on, because it's been a bit of a while since I've been involved. I said, how do you view players and teams? He says, I know. And it's an indefinable thing, really. You can see somebody and you think, I mean, Paul McGrath, when I took Paul McGrath, I brought Paul McGrath to the Man U. And Paul McGrath he was a late developer. And even when he was in the reserves, you weren't sure. But I always knew there was a player in him. And I used to look at him and think, you're not doing it yet, but you will be a player. It's, I don't know, really. It is.
Yeah. Is it like when you go to buy a house, you pull up outside and you can look at it and think, I couldn't live here, or you think, this is for me?
I think there's a bit of that in it. But
I mean, it's a bit more to it, obviously, but
yeah.
just the broad principle I'm talking about.
Sometimes if you look at players and start saying, look at his faults and go, he can't do that, he can't do that, he can't do that. And then you go, can he do that? They go, well, he can, yeah. Well, that's what I really want him for. Not what he can't do, what he can do.
Nowadays you hear so many managers that, they have them checked out, their family and how they live and what they do and all the rest of it. Did that ever come into your
I think there was always that. There was always,
Did you ever turn anybody down because somebody said, hey, Ron, don't. I promise you it'd be a mistake.
Did I? There's not one, nothing springs to mind. Because I always as well liked, I didn't mind a few what I call, not mavericks, but a few characters. I didn't mind a character or two in my team, providing they were productive characters, providing on the field.
Who would you call a character then that you had?
Well, character I've had, all right, we go back to, start at West Brom. You got people like Willie Johnson.
Yeah, point taken.
Yeah, Willie Johnson. Len Cantello. But they were proper chaps, they were men's men.
Yeah.
So they were Frank Worthington, people like that. He never played for me, but yeah, I never minded a few what I call mavericks around or bubbly people.
How did Frank in Fort Lauderdale know that you were going to be the Manchester United manager?
Not a clue. Not a clue.
Yeah.
And there's a little story there, Frank, his sole ambition was to play, not his sole ambition, but one of his big ambitions was to play for Man U. When he was at Birmingham and Ron Sanders took over, Frank's brother, Dave, worked for us as he was doing some scouting. I said, tell Frank to hold on because him and Ron Sanders won't get on.
No.
It's not even an argument. I said, 2 weeks max.
Yeah.
I said, I'll take him, if he knocks him out on a free, I'll take him to Man U. I'll use him, and he, as in a cameo role, if you like. We got Norman Whiteside, Frank Stapleton, Mark Hughes coming through. Frank could be like a 20-minute, whatever, half an hour player, and I mean, he'd have gone down well, because he could still play. And they sold him, I think, to Sunderland. I think it was Sunderland he went to. I said, if he'd have hung on for another week, he'd have been here. But
you went back to West Brom, of course, didn't you?
Yeah.
Was that a mistake? They always say you shouldn't go back.
Well, they say you shouldn't go back. What happened? I mean, I'd been offered a few jobs, and I was actually waiting on. I'd been told that eventually I was going to finish up in Spain. Sort of, whatever. And a guy named Brian Boundy, who was a very, very go-ahead type director at West Brom, came to see me. He said, Ron, I've had enough of this. I've told them now, I want you back, and I want to get people in there that are prepared to invest. They're bottom of the second division. Well, it was then the second division. And he said, Will, we've got to get out of this predicament we're in now, and then I'm going to get people to invest, and we're going to have a right go putting the club back where it belonged. And he sold it to me on that premise. So we went back. The 2 biggest games we had that season were against Shrewsbury. We had to win both games to stay up, and we did. And then at the end of the season, I went off to watch the European Championships to get a phone call from Brian. I've had enough of this. These aren't backing me. I'm quitting. I said, well, you've done me a favour, Dave. I've only come back because of you, like, you know. So.
Did it hurt leaving Old Trafford?
Did it hurt?
Pride?
Not really. No, not really. I mean, you know, it goes with the territory. I mean, I'd had 5 full seasons there. We never had the top 4. Won the FA Cup a couple of times, which now would be par for the course with them, but in those days it wasn't. Yeah. So, you know, I thought I always felt that I felt that I'd managed it quite well. So.
Yeah. You said Martin Edwards was your favourite chairman you worked for. Is it fair to say that Jesus Gill might have been bottom of that list?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
It always came over that way, didn't it?
No, not with me. Honestly, he was unbelievable, Mad Max. Do you know, I never ever had a cross word with him.
Right.
It's amazing. I mean, when I went there, to clarify something to start with, I'd gone back to West Brom, and the second season we'd started to get a half decent team together. I felt, even though Brian had left, we were still, you know, I felt this team's coming along now. With a couple of more now, we won't be far away. I think I got 18 months left on my contract. And they changed the chairman as well. John Silk had taken over then. And I said to John Silk, look, he knew that Madrid had come in. I said, look, if you give me another 18 months on my contract, no more money, I didn't ask for any more money, I'll stay and I'll get you out of the division. I'll get you back up. I know I will. And he's going, no, you get us up and then we'll look at your contract. And I've got a club, one of the major European clubs, offering me sort of 5 times what I'm on. And I've gone, are you serious? Now, funnily enough, I have a laugh about it. He gave Bobby Gould the job after me. Well, Talbot and then Bobby Gould, who did take him out of the division. He took him down,
the
didn't
wrong
he?
way, yes.
Yeah, so I've gone, I didn't realise it. And got a contract. Got a contract after that. I thought, I didn't realise he meant that.
If Jesus Gill wasn't bottom of the pile, is it unfair for me to suggest Doug Ellis might have been?
No, Doug was all right. Doug was all right. There's a lot of myths go about Doug. I mean, you couldn't be a weak manager with Doug. You got no chance. But what I'll say about Doug Ellis, he appointed the club well, and money-wise, what he'd got, you'd get. All right. That's where he wanted. I mean, he accused me of spending too much time at the training ground, which I thought, well,
I thought that was what I was supposed to do.
I mean, he wanted me to go in every afternoon and talk about him and his boat. You know, the boat he had in Mallorca. Well, when you've heard it once, you've heard it. But
you were not natural bedfellows, were you?
Oh,
really?
no. I mean, people said, why didn't you socialise with him? I said, oh.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
But I think I've maybe had a better relationship with him in terms of working than a lot of people. Because anything I wanted, I'd run by him. He didn't have to find any. I never ever did. Went out in the transfer market without him knowing what I was doing. And he actually, just before I left, he wanted me to spend money, and I said, there's no point. The amount of money you're telling me to spend, you ain't going to get any better players than we've got. Save your money. This is what I said to him, save your money. And at the end of the season, we got no more building to do, because every summer, they had about, while I was there, they spent about 6 million quid on the ground, which is a brilliant stadium now. I said, save your money and we'll buy 2 big players. One of whom I'd already identified as Les Ferdinand. But, you know, he jumped the gun a bit. Yeah, but there's a lot of myths abound about. I mean, maybe I pushed them, added a bit
Just
of fuel
a little.
now and again. But I don't think anybody would ever find anything in print. And other managers since I've seen, There was I never ever publicly criticised him. Hey, you'd have a laugh with people you knew. But
You were a natural for the television world. You did Celebrity Big Brother, which I confess I'd almost forgotten about.
so have I.
You were second out. I know you once said to me that you've been asked to do the jungle many times,
Yeah.
and the answer was no way. What was that? I mean, you were second out in Big Brother. What was it like there?
Because I couldn't get out first.
Do I take it you didn't enjoy it?
Hey, it was all right. I mean, hey, they kept coming on, and people say, "What was it like?" I said, "Lucrative," and that's the be all and end all. I went in, and I just, I looked around. I'll tell you what had happened as well. To be fair, they'd done one before me, Frankie Dettori and Razor Ruddock, and somebody else, and they've gone, right, get in, you'll have a right laugh. So I thought, all right, I'll have a laugh. I got in, and I took one look around, and I went, oh, no, just sit there, be boring.
Not the dressing room you wanted to be in.
Boring, and
Yeah.
I mean, Razor Ruddock said it's like an end of season, like a pre-season tour, like you're away with the lads.
You did a Sky documentary as well, didn't you?
Peterborough.
I remember meeting you at Peterborough
Yeah.
United. I mean, if I said that was an interesting experience, is that a fair way of describing?
Oh, it was good. I tell you, I got rave reports.
Yeah.
I tell you, we got rave reports within the game.
Yeah.
And the number of people within the game that were ringing me and saying, "What's happening next week?" And I go, "Just watch it."
Yes. Yeah. And you also did Excuse My French, where you had to do a commentary in French.
Laugh. That was funny. That was hilarious. That was good fun. That was really
Yeah.
good fun. Because Esther Ransom was with me, and she said, "Ron, you're the only person." Oh no, first of all, the professor girl who my professor, she said, "You talk French like a Red Indian." I went, okay, that'll do. That's the start. Esther Ransom said, "You're the only person that could go around the world anywhere without knowing the language and still get by." It was funny. It really was funny. I had a great time doing that.
It's the sort of thing I imagine that you have a good time doing, and then when you actually sat and watched it, did you think, ooh, or did you again think, nice payday, thank you very much?
No, that wasn't particular. That was just much fun. And I fancied doing the thing as well. I fancied that. The irony of all that is I've never been to France since.
And if you tried, you think they might not let you in?
No.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that.
You're a very, very successful co-commentator on ITV on football. I was working there at the time, so I obviously saw you at first hand. Was that something that came naturally to you? I mean, my feeling always was with you that you just call it how it was and you put it in your terms and people identified with that.
First of all, there was a guy up north who because there weren't such a thing really as co-commentators. There was just people commenting every 10 minutes. No, well, not even that. So this guy, Paul Doherty, he said to me, "Look, I want you to come on that. Do you fancy it? But this is what I want. I want you to talk then. I don't want you to say, what a great goal. If you have to say it was a great goal, I want you to tell us why and what could have been done. Just tell us why." So and he gave me certain guide rules, and if you want to have a laugh, inject a bit of humour in, fine, no problem. So there was nobody really in football doing it, and I watched two guys in other sports, Richie Beno in the cricket, who was very analytical and good with the way his manner, and the other one was Peter Alice with his golfing sort of thing, So they were sort of people I took from, and then you put your own sort of character in. And I used to think sometimes I'm sat at a game with a mate of mine that maybe don't know as much about the game as me, so I'm telling him, and I'm trying to. One of the things I always tried to do was try to find out something that might happen before it happened, and say, okay, if a left back's pushing forward, they might start exploiting the space in behind him. That's if they're quick to realise it, they'll cause a problem there. And
They were good days.
great days. I mean, I was lucky enough. I think I did 7 World Cup finals, innumerable European finals and that, and it was great. But yeah, I mean, and to be fair, it's funny how people have different different outlooks. When I was at Man U, I said to Martin Edwards, they've asked me to go to, I think it was the Spanish World Cup, and he's gone, well, that's handy. That'll save me paying for you, won't it? So, that's how he took it.
Yeah.
Now, if I'd have said that to other chairmen, they'd go, well, should you be out there at that time? I said, well, it's the world soccer thing, you know. And
might see the odd good player and might persuade him.
Yeah.
So when it all ended, it ended in an awful way for you. An off-the-cuff comment you made when you thought your microphone wasn't live. Do you still lie awake and think about that?
No.
How did people in football react to you, I wonder? Because it was a curious thing. We started off talking about, you brought in Batson, Cunningham and Regis, 3 terrific players. They were the first 3 black players that most people had seen. So nobody, you know, you had Dwight York, you had a whole raft of black players. Nobody ever had said, well, you know, Ron's a bit like this and what have you. How did it leave you feeling at the time, I wonder?
Well, I was disappointed, obviously. I was disappointed. I thought I might have got more help from people that were in a position to help.
What, in television?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've thought we wanted to, if you like, big shots that said that shouldn't have happened. All right, I should have been disciplined or whatever. The only thing I'll say is I actually quoted somebody there. Wrong quote, but I did. And there's nobody else, even Clive Tilsley, who was sat by me, hadn't heard it. Nobody heard me say it, apart from somebody in Dubai. But, you know, I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying that I thought somebody with my track record might have said, hang on a bit, Ron, you're out of order. You get, because when I look at certain things that have happened since, I think, well, hang on a bit.
I mean, I've seen several black players who've been fulsome in their support of you since that happened, and said, you know, hey, come on, this guy's not a racist. I know he isn't.
Oh, no, hey, by the way, I've had parties in, some of the boys have been here, you know.
Yeah.
But they want to hang their hat on things. Somebody, you know, or that was a big name, and certain people made capital out of it. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get over it, I wonder?
No idea. I mean, there were other things came along.
You did a television programme with Tessa Sanderson, and she tried to bring it all up again, didn't she?
Yeah, but she was told to do it.
Oh, I'm sure she was, yes.
I kept looking at her, I kept saying, Tess, because I knew Tessa when you did it years ago.
Yeah.
And I've gone, Tess, I know somebody's in your ear. Forget it.
I looked through your career, Ron, and about your percentage of wins. I don't know whether you've ever done that as a manager, whether it even bothers you, but you're in the 1,000+ games group, aren't you? And your percentage win is, being really technical, 43.04%, which isn't bad, that, is it?
How far? How much?
43.04. And do you know where you had 50% wins? Do you know which 2 clubs it was?
Well, I would have thought Cambridge would have been. We had a lot of wins there.
Manchester United and Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, I mean,
those are the 2 places where it happened. As we talked earlier, how you went back to clubs, and I remember when you left Sheffield Wednesday and came back to Aston Villa, because I was there for ITV, and I remember I got as harangued by the local people, I think, as you did at the time. Were those difficult decisions to make? Did you?
The Sheffield one was. The Sheffield one.
Because you loved it up there, didn't you?
Oh, I loved it. It was great.
You did well.
It was great. And we had a good team, and things had worked. In fact, the year before, Graham Taylor came to see me, and we just got relegated. We got relegated with 43 points. I mean, that gets you in Europe these days. And Graham Taylor came to see me, and he said, "Look, Ron, I'm taking the England job, and I'd love to be pushing you at the Villa and for you to take over from me." I said, "Graham, we just got relegated. I can't leave now. I can't go now." Now the following year, we'd got promotion again. We'd won the cup, and then the situation came up again, and it wasn't an easy decision, because I was like the king at Sheffield. I could do In fact, the chairman to try and get me to stay, he said, "Ron, I'll do any. I'll get you a Rolls Royce." I said, "I can imagine going to Hartlepool," and this is now every football manager and player's got one now.
Yeah.
I said, "Can you imagine me turning up at Hartlepool to watch a reserve game in a Rolls Royce, Jim?" But you know, I felt I'd left them in a great position because they had a good side. They were a good side and great lads. Yeah.
Do you miss the day-to-day at all?
I love match days. Yeah, I love the match day thing. Or well, you could observe and tell people what to do. I mean, I used to love being out on the pitch, on the training ground and all that, but yeah. Match days I thought were great.
Yeah.
I saw a quote the other day from two quite well-known managers actually, who both said, "Match days, I hate match days." Well, that used to be. That was the day I loved most. You know, because you were going to compete.
Looking back over your career, I mean, as in football, particularly management, you didn't often take a left turn when you should have taken a right, did you?
Don't know what that means. Oh,
Wrong decision.
sorry. I thought you meant on aeroplanes. I never turn right. No.
Would you change anything if you could go back then? Let's put it another way.
Yeah, you'll always change. The obvious thing you said there about the television, you'd change. I might have changed when I was a kid. I might have gone full time instead of going part time. But no, by and large, I mean, my standard take on it is I left school at 15 and never worked since. You know, that's how I see it. I've been all around the world, and yeah, and there's more.
And now you can play golf and enjoy the sunshine.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Ron Atkinson, appreciate your time.
Yeah, good fun.